Welcome to Bridging the Gap, hosted by Utah Behavior Services. I'm Eric Larson, and today our VP of Operations and I are in Tennessee at the Ramsey Solutions studio with George Kamel. George Kamel is a personal finance expert that we had the absolute honor of having at our Self-Care Summit in May. Today, we have some questions for George from our staff that came in after the Self-Care Summit. So we're going to dive into those today. Well, George, welcome. It's such a treat to have you here. So grateful. It's a pleasure seeing you again after a month for our self-care summit that we
feels
had.
like it was just like yesterday, and also it's been years. Yeah. You've aged well, though.
Thank you. Man, my hairline went from a 4-head to like a 6-head. So, it's like, because it's the fingers.
It would have been a 7 without that.
Wow. This is just the roast of Eric right now? What is
No, not today. See, that's all right.
I love it.
So since our self-care summit, it was an honor to have you. You talked about Financial Peace University, the baby steps, and just how to really bring that financial joy to our employees, to the community. And I'm looking forward to having kind of a recap here with you and some follow-up questions that the audience had that didn't get a chance to answer them. So we're here with the lovely Camille Larson, who also is...
They'll put applause in post.
Of course.
Crazy applause.
Fortunately enough, I'm very lucky. She's my wife. So we have the dual roles of being able to work together at work and at home. So we have kind of a unique perspective here of like how we make it work together as a team on and off the field.
This might turn into like financial therapy too.
I know.
I'm here to support.
So, let's get right into the questions.
See what they got.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who submitted questions too.
Yeah.
I know it's a scary thing to like put your business out there, even with a fake name. It's
Yeah.
just to learn something new as an adult is difficult.
Yes.
So I appreciate everyone asking.
Well, real quick, actually, before we get into the question, can we go into kind of your thoughts? Have you ever done an event like that before where companies have...
I have spoken to different companies and churches and things like that, but this one felt very different. It was a very curated event where it was like, here's our one theme, and there's different speakers talking about different parts. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't done one that was money was a part of it. It was like, come speak to our team about money. Mm-hmm. Well, this was part of a bigger thing. And so it was fun to sort of weave that in and thread the needle a little bit more to go, here's how this ties into self-care in general. Here's how money affects your mental health and your relationships. And so it was fun to honestly hear from the other speakers, talk to the team, and just see the amazing work that they're all doing.
That's awesome. You ever been to Utah before?
I have for Ramsey events.
Okay.
But it's always like you're in, you're out. And so this was fun to kind of sit and experience the city a little bit, and especially just hearing from people who live there and what their experience is like, what housing costs, all of the issues that are going on. Like, how expensive it is to live around here? And so those are real problems that everyone's facing. And so I love getting out there among the people versus being in our studio here.
Yeah, it's awesome. We got to work with you. And I mean, the book signing was awesome.
That was able
to everybody that did the book or came and saw you and John. It was just so fun. So
they made us feel real special.
Yeah.
And it was great to meet everyone and sign some books. And I hope they read them. That's the big part.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hope it didn't just end up on a shelf somewhere. It's one of those like, I got Dave's book 28 years ago and finally ended up picking it up and we got out of debt. I was like, pick it up now.
Yeah.
The
Don't
stuff
wait
in there will change your
28
life.
years.
Exactly.
Yeah. What if we could just recap for maybe some new listeners that weren't at that event? I guess what would be your biggest takeaway or a couple takeaways that you wanted to hone in for the listeners?
Yeah, well, I did a talk called Show Me the Money, where it was sort of this, how do we find more margin with the money that we're currently making? Not saying I'm going to go find a new job. Maybe it's going to be side hustles. Maybe it's cutting down expenses. And the formula that I use in the talk is simple. If you want margin with your money, there's only 2 ways to get it. Make more or spend less. And, on the short side, it's easy to spend less because we can look at our budget if we're doing one and go, I'm going to cut some expenses. Yeah, my lifestyle's a little inflated here. I'm eating out way too much. I can cut some of these subscriptions that are weighing me down. And on the make more side, maybe it's side hustles. Maybe we can sell stuff. And so all of that together creates an extra $500 a month. Or you get out of debt and that frees up $1,000 worth of payments you were making on your car and your student loans. Those are the tried and true ways. There's no shortcuts to finding that margin. It takes sacrifice and it takes hard work. But I wanted to show them that if we're willing to create that margin, on the other side is going to be more freedom, more options, more joy than they've ever had before.
That's awesome. And it's the small decisions, I think, every day that add up, and it snowballs.
Exactly.
And working for a behavioral healthcare company, I think those behaviors are very important that we identify them early so we can make everlasting change over a long period of time. So,
Yeah. Well, and Dave's quote connects to that. He's always said, personal finance is 80% behavior, it's 20% head knowledge. So it's the stuff we do that really matters. That's what creates our identities, not just the stuff in our minds and what we can find on Google. And that's the hard part, is actually changing your behavior and adjusting that so you can have that transformation that you're looking for.
and it's funny too, because it's a little ironic working at a behavioral healthcare company. It's like, okay, we're going to teach these behaviors and this is the appropriate way to do things. But when it comes to practicing them, that's a whole different ballgame, I think. It's a little different between studying the curriculum and actually applying it.
Oh, yeah.
So
Especially when a lot of your team, they're so servant-hearted
Yeah.
that they're generally so busy serving others, they forget, you're like, oh, I got to take care of myself too.
Yeah.
And that's why we did this self-care summit to go, hey, you need to make sure you take care of you in order to help take care of others.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was good. So I think, Camille, can we jump into the questions real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can. But before that, I was actually curious about your story because you have done the debt-free screen yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
And so I was curious what you found to be some of your hardest challenges, and back to that behavior versus what the knowledge. If you've always had the knowledge and you just decided to change your behavior, or can you tell us a little bit about your story? Because I don't think I've ever.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get to share it much at our conference, but my story was at 23 years old, I had followed all the steps, the path that we're all told to take. Do good in school, get good grades, do your homework, get to the school of your dreams, fund it using Sally Mae's Monopoly money, and everything's just going to work out. You're going to get your dream job. And what I found was I was $40,000 in debt at 23 years old between my student loans and my credit cards. And I wanted everyone to think I was winning. But internally, I was stressed out. I was anxious. I was frustrated. I was mad at society, at my parents, at the guidance counselors, at everyone before me. It was everyone else's fault that I was in this position. And I wasn't making 40 grand in my first job at 23. And so it was a scary place to be. And that's when Financial Peace University intersected my life and Ramsey. And I went, all right, George's plan thus far has not been working. I'm going to try this other plan that millions have done to get out of debt. And that's when I started following these 7 Ramsey baby steps, which we can get into, which is let's get a little starter emergency fund, $1,000. Let's get out of all consumer debt. Let's focus on that. Nothing else but getting out of debt, smallest to largest balance. Then we can get a fully funded emergency fund to build a foundation for our finances. Now we can begin building for the future instead of paying for the past. And that's when I began investing, began, getting a home, paying off the home. And so 10 years later, from 23 to 33, I went from in debt, negative net worth, to a net worth millionaire. Just because I paid for a home, money in savings, investing for the future. And 10 years to some people may sound like forever. But guess what? It's going to be here whether you like it or not. Yes. And so I had to make decisions daily. You kind of have to reverse engineer. 10 years from now, where do I want to be? Well, what needs to be true?
Yes.
I need to be on a budget. I need to stay out of debt. I need to stay investing consistently into my workplace retirement plan. And so those are really simple. People want a fancier answer of like, what'd you really do?
Yeah.
That's it. I'm a W-2 employee at Ramsey for 10 years. My wife and I, we met. We are aligned on our finances, our values, our goals. We stayed debt-free. And it's that simple when it's that hard. And so you have to pre-decide, this is the plan we're going to follow because this is the people we want to be.
Did you ever have any pitfalls along the way where you're kind of like, that wasn't probably the best thing I should have done? And how were you able to come back from that?
Oh, man. I made a lot of money mistakes. And, when you're 23, you think you know everything. You're like, everyone else is dumb. I'm the genius. I got this figured out. And so I was playing the credit card game thinking I was going to get all my rewards and that it was going to be worth it. And I would just have all my flights paid for because that's what you're told. You're like, well, you got to build this credit score to get all the points so you can get more access to debt because that's what happens when you have a good credit score. And so one of my biggest mistakes was just following that path that we're told growing up of at 18, get a credit card, build your credit history. It's so important. This is the most important thing. Well, what do you do when you're a young person? You just go buy stuff and you just go spend money because you don't have a ton of responsibilities yet. And that's what I did. And that's when I racked up all this credit card debt, carrying a balance. My student loans had been sitting there. And I thought, well, maybe the government will forgive them one day. Maybe the next president will do something about this. But when I took agency over my own life and I realized I have more control than I think I do over what I do with my money, that's when everything changed. And that took a lot of time. That's like 6 months to a year of shifting that mentality from like life is happening to me to I'm going to happen to my life. No matter what happens, I'm focused on my goals. And so while I've made the mistakes of student loans, credit card debt, not investing early enough, investing in the wrong things, blowing every paycheck, especially when I lived at home. If you live at home, it is so easy to go, well, I don't have bills, so my paychecks, I'm just going to go buy stuff. If I had just used that money and invested it, it would have been tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even $100,000 at this point versus me buying stuff. I don't remember what I bought when I was just a working guy living at home, just music gear and trips and books and stuff that really didn't make a dent in my life.
I remember buying a 55-inch plasma TV with
Plasma.
Halo 3.
Yes.
Ooh, that
Where
was
is
the
it
best.
now? Where's that TV?
You know, it's probably at the dump.
And you bought it for hundreds and hundreds of
I
dollars.
think it was $600 at the time from Costco.
Yeah.
I should have returned it.
That's true. Great return policy at Costco.
Could have
They will take
returned
it back.
Yeah, well, since we're on the topic of debt management, we do have a few people that had questions regarding the steps they should take, which you kind of already touched a little bit on. And then a follow-up question to that is, how do you recommend tackling high interest debt versus low interest debt? And does it matter on what you choose to start with?
Ooh, so this is like the mathematical, like,
Yeah.
feels like I should do the high interest first because I'm losing the most money because of the high interest. But what we found at Ramsey is that when you tack the high interest first, that's called the debt avalanche method.
Okay.
And so you're starting with this kind of mountain of, I'm going to go with the highest interest first. What happens is people tend to lose steam trying to follow that plan.
Yeah.
What you need when you're paying off debt is you need psychological wins. You need the momentum. And what happens when you get that quick win, when you focus on the smallest balance, that's called the debt snowball method.
Okay.
So you focus on smallest balance, literally just delete the interest rate out of your mind.
You don't take it into consideration at all.
No.
Okay.
And here's why. Generally, that smallest balance is going to be $500, $1,000, $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
And most people end up paying that off really quickly. And what that tells me, it tells your brain, it sends a signal to your brain going, you just did that. You paid off the debt.
This. Yeah.
Okay, now you freed up a payment. Let's say that payment was $300. Well, now you have all the margin you were throwing at that debt plus a new $300 that just appeared because you paid off the debt. So you use that on the next smallest debt. That one gets knocked out really fast. Well, now we have a new payment that's freed up on top of all that margin. And so you can see the sort of the compound effect that this has. The debt snowball picks up snow as it rolls down the hill. And that progress is what causes people to actually finish the race. And most people that follow the debt avalanche thinking they're going to mathematically get their way out of this, it takes longer and they have a lower chance of ever making it. And Dave has always said this for 30 years. This has now been proven by Time Magazine, Harvard Business Review. They all came out and said, we've studied this. Dave Ramsey was right. The debt snowball is the best way to pay off your debt. And so when you're looking at debt, you can't focus on math. Because if we were doing math, we probably wouldn't be in credit card debt.
True.
You know,
You'd
we wouldn't spend money we didn't have.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the way I paid off my debt, was the debt snowball.
Okay.
And it took me about 18 months to knock out that 40 grand.
Okay, wonderful. There's a question regarding how can we stay motivated to stick to our debt repayment plan? And you did just mention having those little wins along the way, but what if you don't have those little wins and you just have one, let's say a car,
mountain.
or you only have the avalanche?
Well, yeah, we found that it takes most people on average, if they're following the Ramsey baby steps, and your team has access to all of this through Smart Dollar, the Every Dollar budgeting app, tons of resources there for you. And with the baby steps, what we want people to do is have a deep well of, why am I doing this? What is that I've had at moment? Because if you didn't have that moment where you went, I'm going to get out of debt once and for all, you're probably going to fall off the wagon very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to want it. And that comes from this deep why. For some people, it's, well, we never had money growing up, and that's going to stop with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to break this generational curse of money problems and money being a burden in my family to it being a blessing. That could be your why. It could just be, I want to have a family that isn't stressed with money. I want my marriage to have the best fighting chance. I want to show my kids what a real legacy looks like and not have them watch mom and dad be stressed about money.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that why is, you got to find it and you have to remember it. Plaster it on the wall, write notes, make it visual. Visual trackers are great. You can print it online and you can color it in. Every $1,000 you pay off, you're going to color it in. Yeah. And that way you have a visual thing you can look at every day to go, where am I? I'm on track. Look at those numbers. Look at the colors getting filled up on that house or the car or whatever debt payoff you have. So when you match, the deep why with the visual trackers, with celebrating small wins along the way, you don't have to go crazy.
Yeah.
But you can do little things to celebrate. For every, $5,000 we knock out, we're going to do a little celebration. Yeah. And we're going to do something fun. It doesn't need to be expensive because a lot of people go, I'm going to take a vacation.
Yeah.
No, now's not the time to go on vacation. We got to wait till this whole thing's paid off. But there are ways you can celebrate those milestones, and having accountability really helps. So if you're single, you got to find another person who's doing this too, who can keep you accountable and send you that text, or you send the text when you go, I really want to cash out on this Amazon cart.
Yeah.
Talk me off the ledge. And so having other people in your court, and that's the beautiful thing about your team, is that you have a giant group of people who are rooting for you to win financially.
Absolutely.
And so tap into that.
And I love that you talk about making your own little wins and having those milestones of, it doesn't have to be a complete debt that you paid off, but it can be $1,000 towards your debt, or when you hit the $5,000, celebrating those little wins along the way. I love that. Nancy would like to know, what are some effective methods for avoiding debt when you are trying to save for holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, vacations, and you're still wanting to live along the way?
Well, the best way I found to avoid the temptation is to get rid of it. And so when it comes to money, that means we're not going to use a credit card. Because guess what? When you use a debit card, you cannot go into debt. It's your money. When the money runs out, the bank says, will not complete the transaction.
Sounds so simple.
I know. So this is, what? I'm going to take out my card info from Amazon. I'm going to add friction back into my life. Because what you've noticed, everything's gotten more convenient. Everything's Apple Pay. Don't make me work for it. One click, 2-day shipping, free shipping. All of this stuff makes us spend more and causes us to want to buy more. And when it comes to holidays, there's usually boundaries issues that need to be dealt with. So it goes beyond money. Yeah. We have to say no. We have to tell the in-laws, hey, I know you guys go big for Christmas. We can't spend $500 a person this year. Yeah. Here's what we can do. Or can we do a white elephant gift exchange where we all spend $25 one time instead of buying every single person all of the gifts? Mm-hmm. And that means you're going to have to deal with some people who aren't happy about what you do with your money. But guess what? They don't pay your bills, so they don't get a vote. So when it comes to money and, avoiding debt, number one, take out any temptation. I don't own a credit card. I have not in 11 years now. Wow. I don't even own one. I don't have one in my name. I don't have any open lines of credit. And what that's helped me do is say, well, if debt isn't an option, how am I going to do this? And you go, well, I'm going to learn how to save up.
Makes you more creative.
Exactly. Yeah. And you go, I'm going to find a better deal. Yeah. Because when it's someone else's money, you care less about the purchase, when it happens, how much you paid. You just go, well, I'll kick it down the road into payments. I'll figure it out later. Yeah. Well, look at America now. We're $1.2 trillion in credit card debt, $1.6 trillion in car loan debt, $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. Maybe we need to go back to the days where if we didn't have the money, we don't buy it. Yeah. So again, it's that simple and it's that hard. You got to have the boundaries in place. And for me, it's putting strong guardrails on my ability to spend money I don't have. Yeah, I'm putting that friction in there. Exactly. Add the friction back. Yes. We do have some people asking more personal questions regarding things like advice between public school versus private school. So public school, typically it takes longer. You do typically spend less on public school. Private school, you can get done with it quicker, which means you can get into the field of your dreams, earning that money a little faster as well. But it typically does come with a higher cost. So how do you balance decisions like that? Oof. Well, like I mentioned, student loan, it's a crisis. We did an entire documentary on this called Borrowed Future here at Ramsey. You can watch it for free on YouTube. And what we found is that when people make decisions based on how famous the school is, or the name brand, or the reputation, or the amenities the school has, that's when they tend to make really poor decisions that they regret later. And what we also found was those who went the public school route, the community school route, they have great quality education, and they usually ended up going debt-free, or they have way less debt. And so when it comes to this decision, what I think you're saying is, do we go private school and we just quit our job? Yep. We use student loans to fund the whole thing, to fund our life, to fund our bills? Or do we work full-time, part-time, while doing school part-time at a public school in order to do it and cash flow it? Yes. And to me, the path to peace is always going to be to cash flow it, even if it takes longer to get to that job on the other side. And guess what? When it comes to getting the job, we don't see a correlation between higher income just because you went to that school. Interesting. So unless you went to some Ivy League school and it was all, full ride and you're like a prodigy, which is probably, that wasn't me. I was just going to say, you probably fit into that category. Nobody asked me where I went to school. No, but here's the truth. Once you graduate, nobody cares. What they care about is, do you have the skills? Yes. Do you have the experience? And do you have the soft skills? Yes. Do I want to hire this person? Do I want to hang out with you all day on my team? And that's way more important than the actual piece of paper from the place you went. And so avoid student loan debt, even if it means I got to pause, I got to cash flow, I'm going to kick this down the road, because taking on more student loans rarely is going to have any benefit or blessing in your life.
Yeah, I can appreciate
So
that.
go
Thank you.
slow is what I'm saying. At the
Slow
speed of
and
cash.
steady. Yep. It's like the tortoise and the hare story.
Yeah. And what you found is when you graduate debt free, you have more options of
Yep.
where you live, where you work. You're more focused at your job.
You get to choose a job that you want versus one you need.
The
To pay
first
off
one,
those
oh,
student
I need to pay off
loans.
these student loans
Yep.
now because I'm out of
Yeah.
school. I'll take whatever I can get.
Yeah.
You're not desperate. It changes
Yes.
your posture when you're in that interview.
Yes.
They
Yep.
can smell the desperation on you when
Yeah.
you need that job. And so and also make sure you're hygienic. That's important. Shower before the interview.
Well, make sure it's a good smell, right?
Yes.
Well, for those of us that did not do it the smart way, and we ended up with student loans,
Which was me.
yes, and myself included.
Join the club.
We're all in the club.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we're in
all
the
in
club.
that club. It's not the best club to be in, but that's okay. There's hope at the other side. What are some strategies? I'm assuming just following the same debt snowball of getting out of the student loans.
So when it comes to going to school debt free, there's a lot of options. Number one is a 529 plan. You can use to save up for yourself or for the kids.
Okay.
And you can use, it's tax advantage. So the money goes in tax free, it grows tax free. You can use it toward your education expenses tax free, which is awesome. And then on the other side, hopefully if you're a parent, you're like, my kids might go to college. Let's just assume they're going, because what parents do is they go, well, what if junior doesn't go? I'm not going to save. Then school time comes and junior's like, well, mom, here's the college I'm going to. It's $50,000 a year. And the parents are like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do. And they go out and take Parent Plus loans out at crazy interest rates, or they let their kids go into hundreds of thousands in student loan debt. These are not good options. So there's a lot of ways. Scholarships is another one, grants on top of those college savings accounts, and cash flowing. Now, if you're already in student loan debt, that debt snowball is the best method. And most people, they don't have one big student loan.
Yeah.
It's like 11 different student
Right.
loans that are
Yep.
broken down. And so lay those out from smallest to largest and attack that little one first. And if you have other debts in there, like your credit card debt, everything is going to go into that debt snowball, smallest to largest balance. When we get to it in the list, we get to it. Otherwise,
Okay.
we're making minimum payments on those debts.
So you could start in a student loan payoff, bounce over to a credit card payoff, come back to the student loans depending on where they line up on
Exactly.
the snowball.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that helps me simplify it. You just go smallest to largest. That's all that matters. Let's focus on the littlest one and attack it with a vengeance until it's knocked out.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. How can families save money on everyday expenses without feeling deprived?
Ooh, deprived is the key word.
Yes,
What
still
does
enjoying
deprived
life.
mean? Because
It's pretty subjective.
yeah, we're so blessed in America. I think we forget the fact that like we're complaining from the comfort of our smartphone
Yes.
and AC, and we're like, hey, life's really hard. I'm like, okay, yes, and we are so privileged and blessed, and we have grown up in a time of such abundance that we realize we don't really need all the stuff we think we need.
Yeah.
And so part of that is realizing I'm going to make a list of what do I actually need. Well, you need food, you need shelter and housing, you need to cover the utilities, and we need basic clothing and transportation. We need gas in a reliable car to get us from point A to B. And then maybe insurance. That's the other, like, I really need this. Everything else is kind of a luxury. Like eating out, whether we like it or not, is a luxury. And you can go, part of the biggest budget buster in people's budgets is the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Things have gotten expensive.
They have.
So we need to decide, can we cut out? Maybe we're not going to do steak this week. We're going to cut down to lean meats because it's cheaper. Or we're going to go, we're going to do a vegetarian chili this week because that's all we can afford. And so then when you stick to that meal plan and that budget, you make different decisions. You're going to eat out less because you already planned. You have food in the fridge.
Yeah.
It's when you go, well, we don't have any food at home. Guess we got to go eat out.
Every time.
And so have food at home and buy it from an affordable grocery store. Maybe that means you switch where you shop. Where's the affordable grocery store near you guys?
Probably Winco.
Yeah.
Okay. Are a lot of people
it's kind of
shopping
like
there?
an Aldi's kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people. I don't personally because it's back to the convenience. So
Where's the most
I do a lot
convenient?
of Walmart pickup or
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, which is still, that's
It's
still affordable.
decent, yeah.
And pickup is smart because you're not tempted by all the random stuff in the aisles
Yes.
and end caps and distractions. And so I like the pickup if you're disciplined enough to go, I'm not going to add a bunch of random stuff to the
Yeah,
cart.
I was going to say
'Cause it
most of
becomes
the time
Amazon.
they do. Yeah, so they get you at the end. Oh, you forgot. What about this? What about that?
That's
So,
big. And that plus subscriptions. We found that the average person, I think, has like 9 or 12 subscriptions that add up to over $200 a month.
Wild.
So when you just go through your actual bank expenses, your budget, go through and say, do we use this enough to justify the $15 a month? It might not feel like a lot, but when you start to do that among 5 different subscriptions, you just got a $150 raise every single month.
That you could throw at a payment.
You could throw at your payments, throw
Yep.
towards savings. And so anytime someone says like, hey, times are tough, I don't want to feel deprived, I'm going, where are you spending right now that's really adding that much value to your life?
Yeah.
And if you love working out, well, we can still work out, but we might need to go from the $150 luxury gym down to the $10 Planet Fitness
Yeah.
right now for a season.
For a season.
Everything's in seasons.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. I have a follow-up question for you about the deprivation.
Yes.
And I have
That's
four.
such a strong word.
It
It's
is.
like
It
torture.
is. But since we're using it, let's continue using it. I have 4 kids, and I don't want them. Now, I don't think that they'll feel deprived in food necessarily, but the extracurricular activities and making sure that they still have a childhood experience full of activities and band camps and swimming lessons and those things. How do you prioritize that in budgets and paying off debt and in the scheme of everyday life?
Part of it is having a hard conversation with the kids, going like, hey, we can't afford to do all of these things right now. We need to prioritize. And maybe you say you're going to do, what's the one thing you really want to do this summer? And that's the thing we prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
But to say they have to do all of the things or else you're a terrible parent,
Right.
well, that's your own guilt that you're putting on yourself. Or
Yes.
there's pressures from outside where you want to hold up your reputation. You don't want to look bad in front of the other parents. And
Yeah.
you hear, Camille and Aaron, they're kids that can't afford to do the summer camp.
Afford piano.
Yeah, where the kid's like, sorry, I can't go. Mom said we're broke. you
Yeah.
know? So that's always the fear, is it reflects back on you.
Yeah.
But you can't say yes to everything either.
No.
We
In
can't do
any
all the
regard
camps.
to
No.
life.
And that's always when I
Yeah.
was a kid, there was a lot of things I was like, can I? No, we don't have.
Right.
We're not. That's not a priority. You don't even have to say we're broke. We don't have the money for that. You can just
Right.
say, you know what, that's not a priority right now. But let's see what we can do to make that happen next year.
I love that. Thank you.
And so again, it's boundaries. And
Yeah.
when you're kids, it's so much more difficult because you want to
It
give these
is.
experiences,
Yes.
and they know how to push all your buttons.
Oh, very thoroughly.
Or they're
yes.
just so crazy, you're just like, all right, fine, we'll do it, because they're going,
Yeah, give them something to do.
Wilding
Get out
out.
of the house. Yeah.
But that is a tough one. Kids and their activities. And Deloney has
Yes.
a lot of very specific thoughts about travel sports and all the things that kids need to do and
Yeah.
the pressure parents put on the kids to do these things. It's
Yeah.
gotten out of control.
Listen, I'm talking about rec, dance, and
Yeah.
piano lessons, and
See, I was a skateboarder,
things
so
like
we would
that.
just get out of the house and go skateboard
yeah,
at
you
the
didn't
free
have
skate park.
any kind of yes.
The only thing I had to pay for was the skateboard,
Yeah.
which was like, once in a blue moon, you got a new skateboard.
Yeah,
And so that's another thing, is push your kids to hobbies that aren't crazy expensive.
I guess that's true. Fair point. Thank you.
I had a question. So Burgundy from Cedar City was asking, how do you add both spouses to a budget with 2 bank accounts? I know when we got married, we just joined bank accounts. I don't think that was ever a question, but I know for other people out there that's a valid question.
Yeah. Well, I have a controversial take that if you share a bed and you share DNA and you share children, you should just share a bank account. But for some reason, that's the one line they go, no, I will not. I need my independence.
Yeah.
They get all scared. And really, there's baggage, there's shame, there's past trauma. There could be financial infidelity. There could be I worked really hard to save up this money and I don't trust them to
Yeah.
have access to it. Well, guess what? Marriages are built on trust.
Yep.
And communication and accountability and transparency. And when you don't share a bank account, you're just asking
Yeah.
for a breach of any of that. And so what we found is that when you have a joint bank account, one checking account is all you need. So when my wife and I got married, I had a bank account, I made it a joint account, and I added her.
Mhm.
It was that simple. She shut down her account. We have one high yield savings account online that we have our emergency fund in. We have, you can create other accounts under there, but everything is joint. She has access to everything. She can see everything. We talk about these things regularly. She knows where things are at. And to me, that is your best chance at accomplishing your financial goals, building wealth together, growing together instead of growing apart.
Mhm.
And when you have separate bank accounts, it's harder to do that. It's harder to budget. It's harder to know what's going on. And instead, what I think the heart of it is, I want my independence. Well, you can have Eric's fund money as a line item in the budget, and it comes out of
Mhm.
the same bank account. And that way, there's no surprises when you go, wait, how much did you spend out of your secret account over here? And how much have you been saving? That's not fair. I've been working hard to use my income to save in this pile. And it becomes this weird competition and resentment that's not going to help your marriage. So keep it simple. One checking account, one budget.
Thank
That's great. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. on
Controversial,
that.
but I guess I'm a boomer in a millennial's body. Back in my day.
Well, you had mentioned that you have a high yield savings account. Soraya from Brigham City asked, what money investing tips do you have for someone who is still living with their parents?
Ooh. Well, the best money advice is to not blow all of your money because truthfully, you don't have a lot of bills to pay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the parents aren't like, well, you're going to pay a third of the insurance and a third of the mortgage and a third. There's usually, hey, rent's on us. If you can chip in for groceries, that's great.
Yeah.
So your bills are, this much compared to the normal person's. So what you should be doing during that time is thanking your parents for all the kindness of their hearts, and use all the extra money that you would be spending and put it in a savings account. Put it toward your debt.
Mm-hmm.
So put it through the filter of the baby steps. And if you can create $1,000 of margin because you don't have a lot of bills, do it. Because when you're an adult living on your own, paying all of your own bills,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to look back at that time and go, gosh, why was I could have made so much headway with my goals.
Yep.
And instead I blew it.
Yes.
And so sometimes responsibility causes you to be better with money because you have to be.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate that.
When it comes to investing, we recommend investing once you're out of debt with a fully funded emergency fund. So as far as investing and saving tips, you want to make sure you have those ducks in a row before you begin investing with your employer retirement plan.
Which is the $1,000 in an emergency, and then 6 months. Well, I guess it'd be the 6 months worth.
Yes.
All your
So
payments,
$1,000
right?
is first. Then you're going to pay off all of your consumer debt.
Yep.
Once all that's knocked out, we're going to go back to that little $1,000 and add to it until we get to 3 to 6 months of expenses. So on average, it might be 15 or 20 grand sitting in there.
Okay, and if you have a 401k in the meantime, do you still invest in the 401k?
Ooh, another controversial take.
Ooh.
We found that when you focus on too many things at once, you're not focused. So you
Okay.
have to separate and go, debt payoff is first, emergency fund is next, full focus on that, which means we're not doing any investing until those two are knocked out.
Okay, and then 401k and a high yield savings? All 401k, all high yield savings?
Ooh, so I see them as two different camps. I use high yield savings for my emergency fund and my short-term goals.
Oh.
So let's say it's you want to save up to upgrade a car.
Mhm.
You want to save up to pay for a vacation. A high yield savings account is a great place to do that.
Okay.
And all this is, they're generally online. The one I use is called Laurel Road.
Uh-huh.
laurelroad.com/George will take you to the page, and we partner with them for my YouTube channel.
Oh, really?
There's no fees, there's no minimum balances,
Oh.
and your money will grow at 5.15% APY.
Wow.
So think about paying 5% interest.
Yeah.
Now think about earning that same
Right.
5% on all the money you have. It's very rewarding.
Yes.
So that's a great place to grow your short-term savings, but that's not investing. You want to invest for the long haul. So this is 5+ years, I would consider investing.
Okay.
That's where you want to put money away into your retirement plan. And 15% is what the amount you want to aim at
Okay.
of your gross income going into retirement. That might be a 401k, that might be an IRA, which is outside of your employer. And if you see the word Roth, that's even better. That means you're not going to get a tax deduction, but the money that goes in will grow tax-free, and you can withdraw it tax-free.
Okay. Wonderful.
So it's a great benefit.
So follow up to that, what advice do you have for people in their 40s that are just starting to save or invest?
I love this. The fact they're asking it means they're wanting to, and that to me is a big factor. I always say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And so I want them to know it's not too late.
Mm-hmm.
Now, time is the most important part when it comes to investing because of compound growth, which is where your money makes money. So the principal that you put in gains interest. But that money, now the principal and the interest, are both gaining more interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about that, that's what powers a retirement plan. So that if you want $1 million, you don't have to invest $1 million. You might invest 150 or 200. And over time, that money grows to $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to the stock market and all these companies growing in value, and you have bought, shares of those companies. So
Okay.
that's what makes this magic happen. So if you're 40, you still have lots of time. And so it's not too late. And what I would tell you to do is make sure that you have those prerequisites knocked out. Get out of debt, get the emergency fund before you start investing, even if you feel like you're starting late,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to be really hard to make any serious headway with investing when you got payments coming out over here. You have no emergency funds, so you're one situation away from going back into debt. And so debt's going to hold you back from building for that future. And that's why we say get out of debt first, get the emergency fund, then invest 15% of your income into retirement. And if you're in your 40s, well, you're probably going to work into your 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So you have 20 years
Yeah.
to make up for lost time and invest. And once you get the house paid off, which will happen if you follow the plan that we lay out, well, once you do that, you can increase your investing beyond 15%.
Yeah.
To where you might be investing 20, 25, or even 30%,
Yeah.
which is really going to help you make some traction. And once you hit your 50s, there's a thing called catch-up contributions.
Mm-hmm.
So the government says, hey, you're getting late. It's getting late for you in retirement. Let's give you an extra $1,000 you can contribute without penalty. And so that's a great way to also save up. Your 401k, I believe it's an extra $7,000. So there's a lot of ways you can make up for lost time, but the key is to stick to it. Get started and just stick to it. Do it consistently, and you're going to be okay. You'll have a sizable nest egg.
Focus on the basics.
Yes.
Always
Don't
start
you
with
know?
the
You don't have to get
basics.
complicated. No shortcuts.
Yep.
Just put money away. We found in our millionaire study that 80% of millionaires that we studied found that the 401k was the number one vehicle they used. That's it.
Oh.
They said no fancy tricks. We invested in our employer retirement plan consistently over a long period of time. That's what caused us to have money in retirement. And so it sounds simple.
Yep.
That plus a paid for house means you've limited your expenses.
Mhm.
You have a big nest egg to enjoy and retire off of, and you're not stressed out hoping that, Social Security is going to cover you, because it won't. And we hear those stories all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes the easiest answer is the answer.
Yes.
Staring right in your face.
Don't
I love that.
overcomplicate it. Even a
Yeah.
mediocre investor,
Yeah.
we found, is still going to be just fine if they put money away in that retirement employer plan.
Love it. Well, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
Appreciate having you.
Yeah, for our listeners, thank you. George, it was a pleasure having you. Is there any follow-up or call to action that you can give to our Self-Care Summit attendees?
Ooh, that's good. Well, number one, don't let us stop here. We've got tons of resources at Ramsey. You guys all have Smart Dollar, so be sure to get signed up for Smart Dollar if you're an employee, and use it. We got the Every Dollar budgeting app in there. We have the money course in there. I've got a book called Breaking Free from Broke that will really help you get on this plan, and it'll motivate you along the way. And we have the Ramsey Show, which, 1 to 4 p.m. Central Time. We're live on YouTube, on podcast, taking money calls. And I hope that's an encouragement on the journey, because it is a journey.
Yeah.
And this is not a thing that you just get done with. Now, you might get out of debt in 2 years, but building wealth, all of that, leaving a legacy, it's going to take time. And I hope that they all get started today.
Yeah, and stay tuned in your different centers for all of the ways that we're going to incorporate the Smart Dollar a little bit more. into
Yeah,
things. So
that's
that'll be
awesome.
exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sign up. It's worth it. It is probably, I'm biased, but the best HR benefit that's ever existed.
It is.
Outside of an employer retirement plan, which you guys have a match too.
We do.
And people don't even know. They're like, oh, I should probably invest in that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, part of it is you need the margin to invest, and that's
Mhm.
why I hope they follow these steps.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks
Great.
so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, George. Thank you for listening to Bridging the Gap. You can also hear more from George Kamel by picking up his book or listening in to The Ramsey Show and Smart Money Happy Hour. For more resources or information about us, go to utahbehaviorservices.com and check us out on social media at Utah Behavior Services.